Travel safe.
Hello again all, this is Eatmopie, and I would like to welcome you to the new, improved, up-to-date Windwalker Monk DPS guide and talent breakdown. That was a mouthful. So, I hope you have a large chunk of time and a notepad open because this could get deep and it's probably going to be kind of epic. Okay, future Windwalkers, I have said it before and I'll say it again, Windwalkers are freaking fun. They have crazy mobility, tons of utility, and they just have really good DPS. They are a solid, fun class, and you will not be disappointed when you try them. Okay, before we get too in-depth here, and before anybody asks, Windwalkers can dual wield fist weapons, maces, swords, axes. They also can use staves or polearms. Now, dual wielding is the ideal choice currently. There hasn't been too much theory crafting, but it seems that dual wielding is just the way to go. Okay, let's get this party started with a breakdown of the Windwalker Monk abilities. First of all, your stance. Monks have stances similar to warriors. Actually, it's more like a death knight than anything else. Stance of the Fierce Tiger. This is your DPS stance, and what it does is increase your damage done by 20%, and it increases the amount of chi you generate with jab and expel harm by 1, which makes it 2 every time you use one of those two abilities. Okay, Fists of Fury. This is one of the signature Windwalker abilities. It is used in your single target rotation and it's used in your cleave rotation. If there are more than 4 mobs, don't use Fists of Fury. It does not seem to be worth it. Now, that's not 100% proven, but take my word for it. I've done this for months at this point, and if there's more than 4, just use your spinning crane kick and your other AoE rotation abilities that we'll go over later. Anyway, how this works is it has a channeled ability over 4 seconds. It costs 3 chi, and it has a 25-second cooldown. It does X amount of damage, and it spreads that evenly among all the targets in front of you. Okay, Rising Sun Kick. This is your #1 priority attack. This does massive damage. This is your highest damaging attack. It also puts a debuff on all targets within 8 yards of the target you hit with it. That increases all damage done to all of those targets by 10%. On top of that, it has a Mortal Strike debuff for the target you hit, so it's great for PvP. It costs 2 chi and it has an 8-second cooldown. This ability you use on cooldown if possible. Okay, Blackout Kick. This is your main filler ability. It does a fair amount of damage, and it has a few added bonuses depending on your position, if you're in front or behind the target. If you're in front, it will heal you for 10% of the damage that you do. If you're behind, it will put a 4-second dot and do an additional 20% damage over 4 seconds. The dot damage stacks, so you can spam it, but it will never be longer than a 4-second duration. It will just refresh the dot and add the damage to it. It costs 2 chi and it has no cooldown. Okay, moving on. Tiger's Palm. Now this ability is part of your rotation, but its main job is not to do it doesn't do very much damage, but it does give you an armor penetration buff. It stacks up to 3 times. Each stack is 5% armor penetration, so up to 15%. It costs 1 chi and it has no cooldown. That armor penetration buff is a huge DPS bonus, so you want to keep it up 100% of the time. That is where Tiger's Palm comes into play. Expel Harm. This is your self-heal. It also does a little bit of damage. It costs 40 energy. It has a 15-second cooldown, and they just buffed this, so it does a fair amount of healing. It generates 2 chi, but it cannot proc your mastery. We'll get into that later. Okay, another main signature monk ability is Jab. This is your main chi generating ability. It costs 40 energy. It generates 2 chi, and it will proc your mastery, which we'll also get into later. Okay, Touch of Karma. This is a Windwalker oh shit button. Basically, it will absorb all incoming damage for 10 seconds. It redirects all of that damage to a maximum of your health to your target. The damage is applied in a dot over 6 seconds. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown. It has no cost, and it is just an amazing ability. It's a lifesaver and then some. Okay, Spinning Fire Blossom. This is a ranged attack. It has a 50-yard range. It's an instant cast. It costs 1 chi, and if it hits your target that is farther than 10 yards away, it does 50% more damage, and it roots the target for 2 seconds. The only downfall about this is you have to aim. It shoots directly in front of you. If you miss, it does not cost chi, but if something intercepts it, like a pet, then it will use your chi, and it's just wasted. Now there's a glyph for it, but then it removes the root, so I'm not going to get into that. But Spinning Crane Kick. Everybody has seen this. This is your AoE filler ability. It costs 40 energy. It has no cooldown. Only use this ability on 3 or more targets, and after you apply your Rising Sun Kick debuff. That is very important. It increases the damage substantially. It does generate chi when you hit 3 or more targets. If there's less than that, it's not worth using. It's a DPS loss. Paralysis. This is your CC ability. Basically, it's a repentance for monks, or a sap in combat. It's a 30-second cooldown, and if you are behind your target when you use it, it doubles the duration of your CC. Another ability you get is Tiger Brew. You can pause it and read what that does. Basically, every time you spend 4 chi, you gain a stack of Tiger Brew, and it's a DPS cooldown. Another DPS cooldown you have is Energizing Brew. It's a 1 minute cooldown. It regenerates 60 energy over 6 seconds. Very useful for keeping your rotation going smoothly. And that brings us to Flying Serpent Kick, the final signature Windwalker Monk ability. Fly through the air with the greatest of ease, a 25-second cooldown. If you press it a second time, it will drop you down. It'll do an AoE, slow, and damage. Just an amazing ability, great utility. You can start a fight with it, you can get the hell away with it. It's just outstanding. Okay, that is it for the main Windwalker DPS abilities. There are some other ones I didn't include. I'll put a link in the description. You can go to the WoW website. You can check out their entire arsenal. These are the important ones that you will be using in pretty much every pull, or close to it. And yeah, let's move on to talents. I hate talking about talents. The Mists of Pandaria talents are great, but they truly are they're a personal preference or a situational thing. So it's hard for me to say this talent is better than that, because it's not always true. There are certain situations that one is better than the other, and with the new system, it is very easy to just swap out talents in between fights. And that's something that's going to happen a lot. It's a great new change, but that's why I don't really want to talk about talents. But anyway, here we go. This is a brief description of the talents for the monk. Okay, first tier. We're going to call this the movement tier. Celerity, that is your first ability. You have an extra roll and a shorter cooldown on your roll. Then you have Tiger's Lust. This is a castable sprint. It removes roots and slows, and it's usable on party members. So that's something important, especially for like arena. It's almost like a blessing of freedom. It's a 30-second cooldown. Then you have Momentum. Each time you roll, you gain a 25% speed buff for 10 seconds that stacks 2 times. So a 50% speed buff after rolling. Okay, my personal preference for Tier 1 is Celerity. I roll a lot. I like having that extra roll. I like the shorter cooldown. Honestly, it is up to you. Whatever you decide you want, whatever situation it may be, there is no best choice. Tiger's Lust might be better for PvP. I personally don't like it for it's just one extra pain in the butt thing that you have to do. But I can see the benefits of it. So, yeah, you decide. Moving on, Tier 2, the healing tier. Okay, let's start with Chi Wave. Chi Wave was just buffed significantly, and there's the obligatory Brady comment. He had to get in on Chi Wave. This was buffed, and it may actually be the best choice for Windwalker DPS, at least in PvE, maybe even in PvP. It is it's nice. The only downfall is the 8-second cooldown, but that's alright because it bounces 7 times now, and well, that's a huge step up. It was 5, but it was very inconsistent before. Now it is very consistent, and it's awesome. I may switch to this. I haven't decided yet. It'll just take a little more testing, but you can see what it looks like here. Okay, Zen Sphere. This used to be extremely overpowered, and then they nerfed it 92%. Ouch. Anyway, it's okay now. It's the thoughtless button, I guess you could call it. You don't really have to think about it. But also Chi Wave is similar to that now as well. It does okay damage, and it's a decent heal over time. The neat thing about it is the detonate option. You can hit it a second time, and it'll detonate and explode with healing and damage in an AoE around you. Okay, Chi Burst. Now this one has a cast time of 0.9 seconds. Still costs 2 Chi, the same as the others. You can continue to dodge and parry while casting, and it has the coolest animation of any cast in the entire game. Hands down, it's so cool. I like it a lot. Anyway, what it does basically is it casts a spell in a straight line towards your target, and it will hit or heal anything in between there and your target, and then it does a little bit of an explosion once it hits. Very good AoE damage with Chi Burst. I prefer this with my Brewmaster, not so much with the Windwalker, but it definitely has AoE potential, especially for, you know, trash mob spam. Okay, tier 3, the Chi row. We start out with Power Strikes. This causes your jab to generate 1 additional Chi. It's a 20-second internal cooldown. Very nice. Ascension. This adds an extra Chi slot. You have 5 rather than the standard 4. Not too exciting for a Windwalker, but moving on. Chi Brew. This instantly restores all of your Chi. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown, and it costs nothing. Okay, Theory Crafters say that Power Strikes is the best overall for Chi generation, for overall DPS gain, by a small percentage. Personally, I don't like Power Strikes as a Windwalker. Again, this is all preference. I don't care what the Theory Crafters say. Power Strikes doesn't feel right, and it's very possible to waste Chi using Power Strikes. So I prefer Chi Brew because it's burst on demand, and it keeps my rotation going for the... At some point, you're going to be energy starved or near energy starved, and using Chi Burst will allow you to get a few extra attacks in while you regen the energy to continue attacking. And Ascension is just not good for Windwalkers, period. There's no argument whatsoever for it. Okay, tier 4. This is the CC tier. First talent, we have Deadly Reach. This increases the range of your paralysis to 40 yards. Very nice. Charging Ox Wave. This stuns everything in its path. It's a 30-yard range, it's a 1-minute cooldown, and it goes directly in front of you. And last but not least, we have Leg Sweep. It's an 8-yard AoE knockdown stun. It's a 25-second cooldown, it has no cost, and... yeah, that's a pretty nice one. Okay, in this tier, I generally take Deadly Reach as a Windwalker. There are some fights that require CC, and it just makes you more valuable if you can be that CC. Also, it's a nice gap closer for PvP. You're going to be kited a lot. Monks always are. And this is a nice way to just, you know, close the gap, get up there, get your disable back on a target. I tank with leg sweep. It's a preference. None of these, you can use whatever you want. This is a preference tier, as all of them really are. Personally, I hate Oxwave. It's easy to miss with. It's very easy to dodge, especially in PvP, and you waste it. I mean, if you miss, you miss, and it's still a 1 minute cooldown. So, yeah. Moving on. Okay, tier 5. We're going to call this utility tier. Healing elixirs. Every time you consume a brew, you heal for 10% of your maximum HP. It's that simple. Next talent, Dampen Harm. It reduces damage, as you would expect. The next 3 largest attacks within 45 seconds will be reduced by 50%. Okay, the last talent in the tier is Defuse Magic. This reduces magic damage taken by 90% for 6 seconds. On top of that, it recasts all magical effects that it cleared off of you back to the casters if they're within 40 yards. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown, and this is just a nice utility talent. Now, I personally use Defuse Magic on my Windwalker because letting a Lock or a Shadow Priest dot you up and then removing all their dots and putting them back on them just makes me laugh every time. Also, reducing the damage you take, it helps your healers out in a PvP environment. There's a lot of magic damage in raiding in instances, and you're just, you know, you're being a good quality DPS by taking the minimal amount of damage and not being a mana sponge for your healers. Now there's a case for the other two. Okay, the final tier, the level 90 tier. We're going to call this the damage tier. Rushing Jade Wind. This costs 2 chi, and it basically shoots a tornado out in front of you, doing AoE damage to everything in its path. It's a 30-yard range. It's a 30-second cooldown. It costs 2 chi, and anything that is hit by the tornado, your spinning crane kick will do an additional 30% damage for 15 seconds, I believe. Okay, Zune the White Tiger. Summon Zune to AoE the crap out of anything. It has a very nice cleave. It lasts 45 seconds. It's a 3-minute cooldown, and it does a good amount of damage. I mean, 15,000 DPS for the duration of Zune. It takes a picture, basically, of your current stats when you summon him. So if you use him with potions and trinkets and things like that, his damage is going to be substantially better than if you just summon him whenever. The next one we have is Chi Torpedo. It replaces Roll. That's what it does. It heals or damages anything in your path for X amount. It also always heals you. The travel distance is 3 to 4 yards farther than your roll, so it is a very nice get the F away kind of talent. Okay, as a Windwalker, I prefer Zune the White Tiger for a few reasons. One, he does a ton of damage, and during a burn phase, if you pull him out after you use a potion, after you use your trinkets, he gets all those buffs as well. He takes a snapshot of your current stats, and he gets a portion of those, and he'll do a massive amount of damage for that 45 seconds. He also has no cost, but he does have a 3-minute cooldown, so there's a downside. I like Chi Torpedo. It's a nice PvP ability, but for PvE, it's really not very useful. Rushing Jade Wind, there's a case for this. AoE trash situations, this is probably going to be more effective than Zune the White Tiger because it's only a 30-second cooldown. But it does cost 2 chi, and yeah. I do use Rushing Jade Wind as a Brewmaster because it also gives you a stagger buff, but I'm not getting into that. That's a whole different ballgame. Okay, moving on. Let's talk glyphs. No, actually, let's not talk glyphs. If you want to see my glyph choices, you can check my link in the description. I don't want to get into it. There are no true DPS increase glyphs. The only one that even comes close is Glyph of Blackout Kick. This is a new glyph that just came out. And basically what it does is removes the position requirement to put the Blackout Kick dot on your target. It also removes the heal if you hit your target from the front. Okay, before we move on, let's talk about two very important passives for Windwalker DPS. The first one is Tiger Strikes. Basically, you have a 10% chance to gain Tiger Strikes from your auto attacks. It increases your attack speed by 50%, and it gives you your next 4 auto attacks will trigger a second attack. Basically, this means your melee damage is a huge part of your overall DPS. Very important. And last but not least, Mastery. Combo Breaker, that is the Windwalker Mastery, and what this does is gives your jab a certain % chance to make your next Tiger Palm or Blackout Kick have no cost. Mastery is good. Okay, it is finally rotation time. Well, actually, it's not a rotation, it's more of a priority system, as most rotations are nowadays. And it's actually very, very simple for a Windwalker DPS. There are a few things that you need to do. The first one is use Rising Sun Kick on cooldown, or try to do it on cooldown. Sometimes you're a little chi starved, but try. The next important thing that you need to pay attention to is keeping your Tiger Power buff up 100% of the time. If it's off for a second, you're losing DPS. That's the bottom line. The next thing you want to pay attention to is Mastery procs. Use them before you have to generate more chi, because there's a chance that you'll waste a proc if you use jab before using your Mastery procs. Use Blackout Kick as your filler, but use it as often as you can. Try and keep the dot up 100% of the time. It's not always possible, but try. It's a goal, and it really does depend on your haste level and things like that, but I'm not getting into that. The next priority is Fists of Fury. If all of your buffs and debuffs are up, it is always a DPS increase now. They just buffed the damage, and I can't imagine it changing between now and release. Use Fists of Fury, unless, as I said, there are more than 4 targets, and then it becomes not as useful. Use Jab to generate chi because of the Mastery procs, unless you need a heal, and then use Expel Harm, but remember, Expel Harm will not proc your Mastery. Flying Serpent Kick, this can be a DPS increase if you are starving for energy and you really have no other buttons to press. You can try Flying Serpent Kick. It will be a DPS increase if you do it properly and land almost exactly where you took off from. It's not easy to do, and it is a huge risk, because if you have a little bit of a delay, a little bit of lag, anything like that, you're going to lose auto attacks, which is bad, and you're going to have to run back into position, which is also a DPS loss. So use Flying Serpent Kick at your own risk. It can be a DPS increase. It can be a DPS loss if you don't do it properly, or if something happens. And last but not least, use Tiger Eye Brew only at 10 stacks. It's pretty easy to pay attention to that debuff now. And yeah, at 10 stacks you're going to have 20% additional damage for 15 seconds. Take the whole 20%. It's not worth using prior to that. And if you can, try to set it up so that you have a little bit of chi ready to use, so that you can start using hard-hitting abilities with the Tiger Eye Brew. Just be smart and try and set yourself up, almost like preparing for an execute phase. Okay, AoE rotation. Flying Serpent Kick in. As long as the tank has aggro, it's fine. It does do AoE damage. Rising Sun Kick, very important. It puts the debuff on all of the targets within 8 yards. And then you Spinning Crane Kick. Now, if your targets, if this pack of mobs is not going to last longer than 15 seconds, that is your rotation. If it is going to last longer than 15 seconds, it is worth using your Tiger Palm, especially if you have procs, to gain your Tiger Power buff. It's 15% armor penetration, and it's a buff for you, so you will have 15% armor penetration on all of those mobs that you're hitting in the face with your spinning crane kick. But only use that if the mobs are going to live for long enough. If, you know, it's just a little easy trash pack, they're going to die in 5 or 10 seconds, it's not worth doing that. Rising Sun Kick and Spinning Crane Kick is all you need. Now, I do try and save my Zune the White Tiger for boss fights, but if you have a big AoE pack and you're 3 minutes away from a boss, then it's worth using once in a while to just have that little bonus on the DPS meters. Okay, stat priority, reforging, and gemming. Windwalkers favor agility. No duh. It's very much like a feral druid or a rogue. There are no situations where gemming agility is not ideal. However, that being said, if there is a big gem bonus of agility, then you might want to use, you know, a yellow agility and mastery gem or agility and haste, depending on where you are, or hit, or expertise, whatever your preference may be. But agility pretty much for all of your gems. Okay, your reforging priorities as a Windwalker DPS. Hit and expertise. They are your most important stats at first. Hit to cap, expertise to dodge cap at least. They will be your highest DPS increase to those caps. Because, as I said before, white damage, your melee attacks, are really high in your overall DPS. At least 20% of the damage you do is white attacks. And if you're missing a lot of those, then your damage is lower than your maximum potential. So, hit and expertise, very important. It's easy enough to reforge into those. And after that, you have some options. Okay, haste or mastery? It's really a tough decision. It's a tough call, and there hasn't been too much theory crafting on it. Crit is way off the list. Crit doesn't really matter that much for Windwalker. You have a base crit that is fairly high anyway. However, mastery gives you a chance for free procs on hard-hitting attacks. Haste increases your energy regen, which allows you to attack more. It's hard to say. Is there a balance? For me, I think there is. I think that there's a balance, and this is just from my personal testing, what I found to work best for my play style. So that's what I'm going to go with. And, you know, if I'm proven wrong in a few months when raiding starts in live, then I'm wrong, but I bet you I'm pretty damn close. I prefer haste up until my energy regen is right around 11 per tick, because that feels good. You can pretty much endlessly attack at 11 energy regen per tick. And after that, I go all mastery, which isn't very much because a lot of my gear is reforged for hit and expertise, because those are the two most important. But it seems to be a nice balance. My energy regen is high enough, my attack speed is high enough that it feels right. So 11 regen, it's about 6% haste, I want to say. Not very difficult to get to. And then, yeah, all mastery. I like mastery a lot. My mastery is 22, 23%, and that's where I like it. So, yeah, that's my theory. Take it or leave it. But like I said, I can't back it up with numbers officially. It's just the feel, and from my extensive testing, my opinion. Just two quick final notes before I end the video. Number one, try not to waste chi. If you have 3 chi already, don't use a jab. Use another ability, and just once you go over the 4 limit, you do not get that back. It's just wasted chi, it's wasted DPS, and it makes me cry on the inside. So please beware of that. And the final little piece of information I can offer you is practice. You need to be able to manage your chi, to manage your energy, to be as efficient as possible. Spamming your buttons as fast as you can is not necessarily the best way to DPS as a monk, because eventually you're going to energy starve, you're going to chi starve, you're going to run out of cooldowns, and you're going to have downtime. Your goal is to have as little amount of downtime as possible, and if you manage your energy properly, you manage your chi properly, you can endlessly attack, and that is ideal. And that is it. That is the Windwalker in-depth DPS guide. I hope this has been informative. I hope I've given you a pretty solid idea of what to expect with a Windwalker Monk DPS spec. If you have any questions, or if there's something I didn't cover that you're interested in, please leave me a comment below. I do read them, I do respond. And that's it. Thank you for watching. This is Eatmopie, and I'll see ya. This video is part of the Way movement. Learn more at tgn.tv.